Call special meeting to order. Village clerk, please call roll.
Burgess.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Myers.
Here.
Hicks. Washington. Here. Williams. Here. Williams is available on
All right, thank you very much. We move to item number 2, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. This is the NPDES NIPS public hearing agenda. And you can probably Mike, right? Oh, he's got his hand. All right, Jim, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the annual NPDES public hearing. It's in accord with the village's notice of intent for Illinois General Permit ILR 40. So the goal of the program is to eliminate pollutants from entering the storm sewer system or detention ponds and depositing into rivers, lakes, creeks, which are the ultimate outlet points. For Sauk Village, these would be the Lansing Drainage Ditch and Deer Creek. Associated with the program are 6 minimum control measures. The first is public education and outreach. What the village has done to inform the public is, first of all, the annual report has been posted to the village's website. And second, a pollution prevention flyer was posted to the village's website, printed in the Sauk Talk, and was posted to the bulletin board in the village hall. As a reminder to the public, please do not dump oil, paint, or other chemicals down the sewer. Also, clean up after your dogs in the yard and the parks. The second minimum control measure is public involvement and participation. This public hearing is an example of that. The village welcomes public involvement. Call Public Works if you notice any spills in the village's streams. Sauk Village hosted a community cleanup day on October 16th of this past year to clean up around the village buildings and public right-of-ways. The third minimum control measure is illicit discharge detection and elimination. The village has an ordinance that it uses to address illegal discharges to village waterways. Public Works has identified all the outfalls within the village. The village maintains an up-to-date sewer atlas that indicates all the outfalls. And the village's goal is to inspect 20% of the outfalls on an annual basis. The fourth measure is the control of construction site stormwater runoff. The village has an erosion control ordinance in place to address construction site stormwater runoff. Developers are required to provide a stormwater pollution prevention plan, which addresses how to prevent erosion at construction sites. Developers are required to inspect their sites weekly during construction and after rain events. The fifth measure is post-construction stormwater management. The village has a post-construction ordinance in place to address long-term control of stormwater pollution from newly developed sites. Final inspections are required before the developer can leave the site. Detention is required for all developments in the village. Detention ponds and other post-construction measures filter out sediments prior to the sediments being released to the environment. Final control measure is pollution prevention and good housekeeping. The village conducts street sweeping, branch pickup, and leaf collection periodically throughout the year. The village's goal is to clean 20% of the village's catch basins per year to prevent the collected material from reaching the village's waterways. Excuse me. The village requests the public's help in inspecting inlets and catch basins and keeping them clear of debris. Robinson Engineering, or village staff, will develop a municipal operations program for stormwater best management practices. The annual activities moving forward consist of an annual report that is made to the IEPA each year by June 1st. Ordinances in the Storm Sewer Atlas are reviewed yearly. Public Works will conduct an in-house training for good housekeeping practices. Public Works will mow and remove litter from the detention ponds. And Robinson Engineering will ensure that developments comply with stormwater ordinances and floodplain regulations. So that concludes my presentation.
Trustee Brady.
Yes, Mayor. I don't know if you would know, Jim, but who in the village monitors these infractions, or if someone is doing something, who do we have that goes around to make sure that these things, or to at least look to see that we, we're getting to that point where you just stated about the detention ponds, be it mold and things like that. Who do we have that does that, Mayor? Do we have someone that monitors that? Because I know that we only have one person on the code, so do we have anybody? Because I know last year, this detention pond that we have right out here and the one over in Lincoln Meadows was overgrown, and I'm just, so I'm just wondering, who do we have to do the monitoring?
Go ahead, you can answer.
Public Works would be the contact for the program.
So Public Works would be the ones that would monitor to make sure that we're mostly in compliance with what should be done?
Yes.
Okay.
Trustee Myers.
Is there still a board for the Lincoln Lansing drainage ditch? A couple of times, residents asked me, and I said, well, they did have a board. Then they come back a couple of days, said, Trustee Myers, if they're the board, they're all dead somewhere, because nobody's answering. I can't get any information. Who is in control of that ditch now? It runs all the way through our town.
I'm confused about it too. My understanding was that board was supposed to be dissolved once the MWRD took over control of the local waterways, but according to my information from Kevin, is that that board is still in existence. There's still a charge to the village for their services, and my
They
opinion,
pay taxes for it, that's for sure. Could you check into it and find out for us, please?
I sure will.
I have another question.
Good.
Item 6A. You do know that every year in this town that we do put our leaves in our street, and our public works, and the scavenger company comes along, picks them up out of the street. But if you're going to do something other to stop that or correct it, then it's going to be a tough one. Over the last 40 years, we've been allowed to put our leaves on the street, and then public works come along with the device they have and pick our leaves up and everything. But now one of your notes here says you can't do that no more. Could you check with a few people and find out?
Where does it say that they can't put the leaves in the streets?
The village conducts a street cleaning, branches picked up, and leaf collection prior to throughout the whole year. And up on the top going there, you don't put those in a roadway, because put them in a roadway, you get a nice little rain, and I've seen it 100 times, and the next thing you know, they run down our catch basin, and we got a whole catch basin full of nice pretty leaves.
It's kind of a risk that's taken. The IPA is very happy that the village does the street sweeping and clears the leaves. There's a thought that eventually the leaves might end up in the storm sewers anyway if we didn't do the street sweeping. So my opinion is, yes, there's a risk that they'll get washed into the storm system, but really I think Kevin does a pretty good job of staying on top of that and get those leaves swept up as soon as possible, prevent that from happening. And once the leaves are gone, then we don't have that risk of getting those sewers clogged. But I hear what you're saying, Trustee.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Trustee Jones.
Just a comment on that. If we tighten up that time between, cleanup, that probably would alleviate the possibility, stop some of the leaks. If we tighten it up and say, in between, I know it's hard to do, Monday and Wednesday instead of the 2 weeks of prior to, you know what I'm saying? And if we could kind of stick to something like that, that'll help. I mean, because we still need to do it. So we tighten up the time on it so it's not on the ground as long, you know, maybe that could be a solution to that.
It's just something to look at. They're talking about we have to maintain our catch bases and stuff, and I know the one down from my house actually put the leaves out there, and this year we had that major rainstorm came through, and next day we melted it out to dig all the leaves to keep the water, street from flooding, to keep the water flowing. So that's a good idea. We're trying, that's all we can do.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, we'll move it open public comment. This is a special meeting, so the public comment is on agenda items only. This is a public hearing. So,
just a recommendation. For the last couple of years, when it's time to put the leaves out, I know throughout the village we have parking on one side of the street only, but yet we're told not to park on the leaves because it makes them smaller, it crushes them down. So what our family's been doing is bringing the leaves across the street. Since the parking side is in front of our house, if it would help the leaves from being crushed, if everybody puts it on the non-parking side of the street, that may help a little bit, that's all.
State your name for the
Yeah.
record, please.
I'm sorry.
State your name for the record.
Jan Clark.
Thank you.
all right, thank you. Next.
Bernie for on behalf of Sauk, the citizen of public awareness. I'm sorry I came in late and I didn't hear your whole presentation, but I wanted to find out, did Robinson Engineer apply for grants for the NIFTY program? From the state or federal grant? How much is this going to cost the village?
There are no grants available for this.
Mm-hmm.
It's a non-funded mandate,
Okay.
and truth be told, the costs associated with this program are not that expensive anyway.
What are we talking about? Not expensive anyway. We're broke, so what are we talking about?
Compliance and associated activities, probably another $5,000 to $10,000 a year.
Okay, so somebody has checked in to see if there aren't any grants available from U.S. and the Illinois state, so they actually told you there are no grants available for the NIFTY program. Okay.
Any other questions? Yes.
Bernadine Hopkins. I just want to know, what is an outfall, and could you describe it, and is it something that I could see just walking along the street?
Sure.
You better speak into the mic. If you would, please repeat the question for the ones that did not hear it, please. No, he can repeat it, because he's going to answer it. Yeah.
The question is, what is an outfall? It's a great question. I'm sorry I didn't explain that better. So all the stormwater that, for instance, falls on the streets goes into, it's called catch basin. Those are those grates that are on the side of the street. And that's basically like a manhole that then goes into a pipe. And then all those pipes join together into larger pipes. And eventually, there's a large pipe that goes in and discharges to a stream or a creek. Like for the village, it would mainly be the Lincoln Lansing ditch. That's where a lot of the outfalls are. So the outfall is where that flow actually exits the pipe and goes into the stream. Does that make sense?
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
You got a motion, is there a second? Got a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned. We will take a 5-minute recess before we start our next meeting. So we plan on starting our 7 o'clock meeting at approximately 7:05, 7:06. All right, thank you.